Hey y'all, in for H&H with the Yaesu FTX-1. So I want to show you a little something here. I have the opportunity because of some QSOs that are going on right now here on a Thursday morning, and I'm listening to the 80 meter band. Hear that interference? The high pitch one. Okay, so let me explain something, and I wrote about this in detail on Patreon. There's a poll that I did asking people if they were going to return their radio or sell it when they found out that Sherwood only gave it a score of 91 dB for the third order dynamic range there. It's 91 dB. Anything above 90 he considers plenty good, but of course above 100 is really good. That places this radio at 34th in his list. Now it's still 5 right now as I make this video. That's still 5 above the IC705, which is this radio's competitor. In fact, notice I have it in the portable setup there using a tripod I got off Amazon. So the radio is made really to be a portable, but you can mount it up there to that 100 watt SPA1 amplifier. That's a little pedestal I had the control head sitting on. Took it off that to put it on this portable setup. I've got the SPG1, that's the protective guard here for setting it up to go SOTA. But again, this radio is a portable radio, so it's small. And because of that, it has 10 bandpass filters, to cover 13 bands, because you've got 70 centimeters, 2 meters, and then 6 through 160. And it's using 10 bandpass filters. These are filters in the front end nearer to the antenna to divide down to a specific frequency range to be processed. And in this case, being that it's a direct sampling radio, an SDR, it's going to process whatever the bandpass filter passes through. So I had reports from a couple of people, especially one particular Patreon team member, and he's a annual S9 member, which people who join as an S9 annually can ask me questions, even get on a Zoom call for some assistance. And so this gentleman was telling me that he's got 3 AM broadcast stations nearby his location, and that he basically can't play 80 meters at night to get on a net with some friends because of the interference. So I've been looking for a way to see if I could replicate that. I don't have any AM broadcast stations nearby, but what I have noticed this morning by monitoring these guys, now let me show you where they really are. And I think they quit talking. They have. Let me find another group. They were strong. Okay, here we go. Now don't go by the S meter because I'm already running let me get into the menu and show you. I've got attenuation on and IPO on. Okay, so forget the S meter. Those guys are going to be easily 20 plus over. What I want you to know, so I can just tell you right now, they're strong. When the strong station comes back again, I want to show you something that is a little bit of a clue. And I haven't noticed this as much on other bands, but since my Patreon member was operating on the 80 meters, technically 75, he mostly does CW, but in the evenings he has a net that he joins in on with some friends, and the AM broadcast stations wipe him out. And by the way, this gentleman's been a ham so long, he's had just about every radio made. He said this was the first one to have this problem. And I will sidetrack slightly to explain. When I say he's been a ham a long time, he's had tube type radios, from way back, 50s, 60s era. Now those radios back then had something called a pre-selector. So in addition to a bandpass selector that says, I only want to hear the frequencies for the 80-meter band. The pre-selector then allowed you to narrow down even tighter than that. Not too many radios have the pre-selector these days. The FTX-1 does, the 5000 does. They do it digitally in the ICOMs. Kenwood TS990S has a type of pre-selector. It tracks. You don't separately adjust it, but not every radio's got a pre-selector, okay? That would be nice to have in this rig, but it relies strictly on the bandpass filters. Now, I mentioned to you earlier, so it's got 10 bandpass filters to cover 13 bands, and it's covering, think of that, it's covering from 1.8 to 450 megahertz with those 10 filters. So you can imagine that it's probably having to do some doubling up there. Let me put that in perspective for you. The FTDX10 has 15 bandpass filters to cover the 11 HF bands that it covers, 6 through 160. 15 of them. Now, by the way, why do you need 15 if you only have 11 ham bands? It also has a general coverage receiver, remember, so it has to have filters for that. So, and again, in this case, this radio has a general coverage receiver as well. As a matter of fact, it even covers the weather band, the NOAA weather broadcasts. So it's having to do all of that with 10 bandpass filters. So there's going to be some overlap. So I think what I'm discovering here, and let me see if these guys are talking. I need a stronger station. Let's go up here.
Computer-controlled remote.
All right, there we go. Now, what I'm going to do, notice I'm on 39.95.
To put in it. All of my,
I'm going to move up 3 kilohertz to 39.98. You hear the splatter? Okay. Now, sometimes that can happen when somebody has their radio adjusted wrong, radio amplifier combination adjusted improperly, and they'll splatter. This has been the case, everybody I've listened to this morning, so it's not them. And no, it's not a net noise blanker. I don't have the noise blanker engaged. Noise blankers are notorious for affecting selectivity, and you'll notice here on the menu, noise blanker is off. So what's happening here is it's not as tight. Now, one thing I can do to help, and also too, let me just mention, in the case of the AM broadcasts that are interfering with my Patreon member, they're out of band. So the bandpass filter should block that anyway. They're not even on a ham band. This is within a ham band. So the selectivity is suffering a little bit. Now, this doesn't have a roofing filter like the FTDX10 does, or the 101. Now the FT710 does it digitally, and that's how it will have to be done with this one. I'm going to long press the volume knob, which is AF gain, RF gain. Listen to that. I'm long pressing and getting into the DSP, and it's currently set at a width of 2800. Now you're thinking, well, you're 3 kilohertz away with a width of 2800. You should be blocking them. Yeah, well, I should be minimizing that noise. I'm going to tap the DSP button here so that the display over here turns orange, which means I'm in adjust mode. See, I'm going to narrow down to 2100. I mean, that should be way plenty. Tap to lock that in, and then long press to get out.
Oh, it came in on that. Came in on the phone lines in 40. Morning, Mike. Morning, Mike. But my power never went out.
See, it's not helping. So this radio is going to have an issue. So far, what I've found on the 80-meter band with selectivity, you know me, I give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Do I hate the radio? Absolutely not. It's still going to work out great for me, for soda, portable ops, I wouldn't take it to field day unless you have an actual, like an external pre-selector, but many clubs bring external pre-selectors for field day anyway. So you could probably get away with it on field day if there are mechanical filters, pre-selectors available. And again, a lot of the clubs have those. But yeah, I mean, if you're saying, well, I want one radio to use as a base station, take it portable, take it everything, you're going to need to know that your selectivity on the 80 meter band is going to be limited. I mean, I've narrowed down to 2100 hertz. Let me get back in there. When it comes back in, I'll narrow down even tighter. I don't mind 2400. I think 2450 is a really good happy medium. Hear the interference? Not as bad as one of the other stations is stronger. But when it comes back, I'll narrow more. Why do I show you the negative? Well, I mean, this channel, there, listen to that. Well, I wish he'd stay in there. There we go. Short transmissions. I'll go to 1650 and let's see if we hear him pop in. Yep, see? Still there. Yeah, that's an issue. That is a problem. This radio is going to lack in selectivity. And again, I've mainly focused on the 80 meter band because of my Patreon member who brought this to my attention with his scenario. And, why do I show you the negative stuff? Yeah, so I show the good, the bad, and the ugly. I don't have any relationship with a manufacturer or a retailer, so I'm not censored, and I like it that way. But in order for me to do that, I have to have support. I'm fortunate if I hit $100 in YouTube ads a month, and that won't even come close. So the Patreon team members, people who donate monthly through Patreon, and by the way, I have a lot more content on Patreon for the members. In fact, not everything's a video. Some of it's written documentation and articles. But the Patreon members keep these videos coming. As a matter of fact, I'm closing in on 1,000 videos between what's on YouTube and what's on Patreon. And the S9 members, which is the highest tier, those of the S9s who subscribe annually for multiple years, I call them long haulers, they're the ones who really make the content continue, because I can plan around that, knowing that there's going to be enough coverage, to be able to continue investing. Editing equipment, storage, cameras, lighting, everything else, all the expenses that go in, plus, the time. So editing software is a biggie though, and cloud storage. So with these members who support the channel on an annual basis as S9 contributors, I can plan better and hopefully continue doing this for you. So if you appreciate it, consider joining as a Patreon member. There are lower tiers, you don't get as many perks, but these S9s who subscribe annually, they get everything. So I want to acknowledge 5 of them right now at the end of this video so you can appreciate who brought you this video and hundreds of others. 73 from N4HNH.